Good evening, Carol.
Great to have you with us this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Just tell us, first of all, what do you make of President Trump already back in the Oval Office after that very dramatic, high profile discharge from hospital only a couple of days ago?
Well, I've been on campaign trail with President Trump, and keeping up with him is like keeping up with two 30-year-olds. Indeed, the advanced staff who are young are scrambling constantly to keep up with him. He's been like a bucking bull. You can't corral a bull. He's eager to get back to work and help the American people and keep fighting for them. And what he's trying to demonstrate too, and of course, he's listening to his doctors. He is fever free and has been symptom free for 24 hours. He is a man that has a lot of energy. I think a lot more than Biden, who calls press lids at 9:30 at night. But I want to say something that I do agree with your correspondent that this vice presidential debate is much more consequential than they usually are, primarily because the president has been ill. The scrutiny is much more on Pence. In addition, as you said, this is sort of an audition as a president in waiting in regard to Kamala. Now, Pence is the yin to Donald Trump's yang. So while Donald Trump was very hot, and obviously the last debate had a case of, as I call it, terminal interruptus. It was all cat, no cattle, as we say in Texas. You could not understand anyone's policy position. This gives Pence a chance to articulate President Trump's record on the economy and to draw a sharp contrast between the two warring ideologies in this country, one veering towards socialism with left extremist perspective in the Biden Harris camp, and then America as we know and love it as a more capitalistic society, and the opportunity, as Trump has built a robust economy before, he can do it again. So even if you
Okay.
don't like the candidates, I keep saying that this really comes down in this election to platforms.
And do you think that Mike Pence is going to be able to, if you like, carry the can for the campaign, for the Republican campaign for the next week or so? While, of course, President Trump, however much of a extraordinarily robust character as you've been describing, I mean, he has got to recuperate from the virus.
Yes, he has to pace himself, and I think he will listen to the White House physician, Dr. Conley. The answer is that Pence has got sort of this calming demeanor, like a doctor's bedside manner. And I think that he is popular. Obviously, he's not the president or the candidate, but he is able to articulate the president's record and achievements during the last 3.5, 3 years, 10 months, actually. And I think that that's really helpful. But additionally, the first family is out there as well. I do hope and pray that President Trump is able to debate, even if it's a virtual debate, because I really think that there's pent up demand to see the president, and who obviously has had a much easier time than your leader Boris Johnson.
Well, absolutely. And as proof of that, in the last few minutes, President Trump has released a video. He's speaking out in the Rose Garden, as far as I can see. Let's have a listen to what he's saying.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. And I'm standing in front of the Oval Office at the White House, which is always an exciting place to be. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I spent 4 days there and didn't have to. I could have stayed at the White House, but the doctors said, because you're president, let's do it. I said, fine. You tell me what to do, and I'm going to listen. These are great professionals. They've done a fantastic job. And by the way, not only at Walter Reed, all over the country, we have the greatest doctors in the world. We have the greatest nurses, the greatest first responders, law enforcement, by the way, incredible. Firefighters, everybody. They're just great. We have great people. This is a great country. But I spent 4 days there, and I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot. And within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. It's called Regeneron. And other things too, but I think this was the key. But they gave me Regeneron, and it was like unbelievable. I felt good immediately. I felt as good 3 days ago as I do now. So I just want to say we have Regeneron. We have a very similar drug from Eli Lilly, and they're coming out, and we're trying to get them on an emergency basis. We've authorized it. I've authorized it. And if you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, I think we're going to work it so that you get them and you're going to get them free.
Well, that was some of President Trump's latest video. Henry Zeffman, Washington correspondent from The Times. What did you make of that?
Well, it continues to be an incredibly distinctive response to contracting the virus, and it's very Trumpian. And his supporters and detractors alike would expect nothing else, I suppose. I mean, one thing worth saying is that it was recorded on Tuesday, we're told, in the grounds of the White House. So still a little time ago. We've not actually seen him today, but no, look, I mean, he looks well enough to record these videos, but of course they're edited. I'm not saying sort of edited to change it in any profound way, but we are still some time since we saw Donald Trump in front of a live microphone taking questions or in front of a large crowd giving an address. So clearly he is on the mend. But I think the sort of political issue for his campaign is how quickly can they take a president who is now capable of recording videos like that in the White House grounds and get him back on the campaign trail, trying to turn around an election that the polls indicate he's currently losing.
Yeah, well, MICA Mosbacher is still with us. Is there a danger that this very robust, this very swift bounce back could actually be counterproductive? We know that a lot of Americans are very concerned, very worried indeed about coronavirus. We know that Joe Biden's much more cautious approach does seem to have put him ahead in the polls. Are you at all concerned that the president's approach may just jar with many voters, and rather than being impressed by it, they'll just be worried by it?
Well, certainly it gives more ammunition for his critics. But in 2016, Hillary Clinton was ahead by 10, 14, 16 points, depending on what poll. And I always say I don't pay attention to polls. I look at momentum enthusiasm, which leads to getting out the vote. I've spoken on conference calls with members of the First Family who said he feels great. I feel that this White House position, with his distinguished record in Afghanistan as head of a trauma unit, has no reason to cover up and risk his career. But most people have made up their minds. So early voting is already going on in this country in several states. Indeed, in my state, Texas, early voting starts in the next 10 days. So I think that we're really appealing to only a handful of those undecideds. Now, this election will be razor thin, like it was in 2016. But according to a Fox poll, there are fewer undecideds now than there were in 2016 at the same time. So I think it's important that we just continue with the momentum. The Republican National Committee has the largest ground game in the history of its existence. We've got 2.1 million volunteers who have been out since June conducting door knocks, something the Biden camp criticized the Republicans for doing. Interestingly enough, now they're canvassing door to door to help get out the vote. So that's really the key at this point, and it's always been about the economy, and it always will be about the economy. And let's face it, COVID has devastated so many families in my country, your country, and indeed around the world. And that is also an economic issue. Individuals have got to get their kids in school and go back to work. And so that does involve some risk. But I think that, scientists are even saying people have to be able to go back to work and just exercise caution, but continue to live their lives. And I think
Okay.
that's President Trump's message, right?
Yeah, and Mika, just finally, how do you think the president's illness and his rapid recovery is going to affect the campaign? I mean, is he really going to be able to take part in that next presidential debate next week?
All indicators from my conference calls and interaction with senior staff of the campaign is yes, it will take shape one way or another. Obviously, the preference is in person with social distancing, like tonight. If I know this president, um, he is the ultimate comeback kid, and I would be very surprised if this debate doesn't take place either on that date or gets moved, a day or two. But that obviously is our goal with the campaign, and to get him back out there at least addressing the nation from the White House.